or will we get thrown out?
I'm not sure either. I think just
What time we have?
it's about 10 now. Right, probably got another half 5 minutes.
Well, the point is going to talk a bit about the financial situation. And he knows an awful lot of stuff. And he's been doing the bulk of the work on the UK column. So a lot of people said he's improved dramatically. Because Mike's better than I am at typesetting and everything else. And he's done some great articles. It's sometimes tricky actually talking and getting out. They know he wants to talk tonight, and I think he should. They seem quite friendly.
Okay, well, I'll start off by asking a question. Who knows what the national debt is? How much?
Trillion is
How many?
trillion. A couple of trillion, I don't know.
The published figure is 800 billion. And then you add on to that 1.2 trillion pension black hole. And then you add on to that 1.5 trillion personal debt for us, mortgages and credit cards and the rest. And then you add on to that, well, another 2 or 3 trillion in corporate debt, and you should come up to about 180, 190,000 pounds for every working man and woman in the country. Right, so that's another mortgage. So, a second mortgage, you know we have a second mortgage, or a third. This has happened because bankers have been speculating, and the speculation is rife at the moment. Now, in 2007 we had a crash, and everybody knows that there was a crash. The banks very clearly nearly went bankrupt, and we decided to bail them out.
Not us, the government.
The government decided to bail them out, but we allowed it to happen. And it was the mechanism that they used to bail out the banks was called quantitative easing, and it was effectively printing money. What the Bank of England did was they held reverse auctions where companies, banks and other companies could come along with toxic assets and sell those assets back to the Bank of England. But of course, the Bank of England didn't have any money to buy the assets back with, so they printed the money. They didn't print physical money, they pressed button on the computer, but they effectively printed the money. And so things went on since 2007. We know we've had our emergency budget. We know that we're going to see somewhere between 25% and 40% cuts in the public sector arena. And we know that is going to probably have a knock-on effect of between 1.5 and 3 million jobs lost, because of course for every public sector pound that doesn't get spent anymore, there's several private sector pounds that don't get spent either. So we're going to see massive job losses probably over the next year or so as this starts to kick in. But the big problem is that the banks are still bankrupt. The issue is never dealt with. And the new money that was printed is sloshing around the system, but it hasn't actually solved anything. So in the last 3-4 weeks we've seen news stories of £1 billion here, £11 billion there, several hundred million pounds. All the banks are announcing all these big profits, but what you're not being told is that there's £300 billion of bank debt coming due this year. So if they've only made somewhere in the region of £34 billion in the first 6 months, and assuming the situation continues as it is, I think we're going to make another £40 billion profit in the second half of the year. How are they going to pay off £300 billion of debt? So the situation hasn't changed at all. We're still in as bad, it's in fact a much worse position today than we were in 2007. And that's August now has been, and there's been, our news stories have been filled with Pakistani cricket, while in the meantime the Federal Reserve has already started its quantitative easing process again, so they're already printing money. And they printed a lot more money than we did in 2007. So they're significantly more trillions of dollars in debt than we are. The states, the individual states are completely bankrupt, but the Constitution doesn't allow the states to go into debt. So they are laying off staff. Order of magnitude more than we're going to be doing in this country. So, you know, if you look at economically how things have happened over the last 20, 30 years, there's probably about an year to 18 month lag in from what happens in the States to what happens in the UK. In August, the stock market has been rising. It's gone up from 5,000 to about 5,500, and this is money being pushed into the stock market from pension funds and other places. It's basically sucker money, effectively, because there's nothing to back up this rise in the stock market. There's no economic activity going on. Companies aren't producing anything. There's nothing actually going on in the real economy to back up what's happening in the stock market. So this is just pure speculation that's going on, and it's going on at even greater levels now than it was in 2007. One of the real areas that I find particularly worrying that the speculation is happening is in food. So it's got to the point now, for example, that Russia has put an embargo on the export of grain. And this is causing, this has kind of been the feeder for the speculation in grains in particular. But then there was a big issue in a big article in the news a couple of weeks ago with a major London hedge fund buying up all the chocolate, all the cocoa beans for the that were produced this year, just about everything. And this hedge funds are getting more and more into physical commodities, oil, gas, anything that's physical, because that's what they want. And what was really staggering is, I worked for a hedge fund in London for 10 years, just shy of 10 years, and they would never take physical delivery. I mean, it nearly happened once or twice that they did take physical delivery of something, but that would have been a disaster for them. They never take physical delivery of something, so they bet on the futures contract, and they hope that the futures contract is going to behave in a particular way, but they always sell the contract before it comes due, and they would actually have to take physical delivery of the commodity. But several hedge funds now are starting to actually take physical delivery of physical commodities, and this is quite interesting because obviously they have to pay for warehousing, and the question is why. I think in about 2001 or so, there was a big front page article in the Financial Times which said Rothschilds getting out of gold. Up until about that time, the Rothschilds had traditionally kept a stock of gold, physical gold, which they lent out to mining companies as a hedge against future production. So in case a mining company couldn't meet its future contracts for future production, they would borrow gold and stockpile it from the Rothschilds at a fee. And the implication of the headline in the Financial Times that the Rothschilds were no longer interested in gold, and they were going to sell up all the gold. Actually, when you read further down the article, you discovered that wasn't the situation at all. What they were stopping doing was lending this gold. In other words, they wanted to keep it for themselves. So they started to actually, they refused to lend it out anymore. Whenever you see these kind of moves towards holding physical product among a financial industry which is mainly based on trading paper and really doesn't want physical product anyway, then the alarm bells need to be starting to ring. And as I say, the stock market has been going up, and it's really sucking. It's a bit like, it reminds me a bit of the year 2000, the sort of technology bubble. where more and more money is being drawn into the stock market, and headline figure in the stock market is going up and up and up. Of course, none of these technology companies were actually doing anything, it was producing any real value. So this was just speculative nonsense, which eventually bubble burst, and lots of pension funds, lots of people lost lots of money. And this same kind of thing is happening today. So, when the stock market behaves one way, really you want to be looking at other areas. You look at what's going on in the bond market, for example, and government bonds are it's effectively government debt. And if government bonds are not producing a return, if they're being traded at a very low interest rate, then that means that people don't have much faith in government, in national economies. So German government bonds, for example, are being sold at a very low interest rate, and that's reflective of really what's going on in the Eurozone. We've got Ireland that has, the banks in Ireland are in a very similar situation to the banks here, where they can't cover the debt that they have for this year. Greece, you know about, Spain, Portugal, Italy, these countries are all facing sovereign debt problems. They can't repay the debt that they owe as nations, not just here, but the banks, but the nations can't repay the debt that they owe. If you look at what's been going on this month, you look at the Fed starting to create money again out of nothing, and look at what's going on in the stock market and the bond market, in the commodities market, then the situation is looking towards September being a very interesting month financially. And what always interested me over the years was people's misunderstanding of the difference between the financial system and the economy. And people are always talking about money. Money has effectively become almost something that people worship. You look at celebrity, and it's not about, people become celebrities because of how much money they have. They don't do anything. They don't do anything for society. They don't actually, they don't do anything for us. They're just there as figureheads that represent money. And, money has no value. It's just a piece of paper. We use it to represent value. But the problem is that we've lost the idea of what value is. In fact, we only generate value when we produce something. And this country hasn't actually produced very much for about 40 years. And actually, for the last 40 years, we've been systematically reducing our productive capability and shipping it out to China or India or somewhere where it's cheap.
That's all right, yeah.
So we face a situation where if we look at Britain's money supply over the last 20 years, say since the Labour Party became the government in 1997. In 1997, the stock market was sitting at 6,000 or so. Today it's 5,500 or so. Now the stock market is notionally supposed to represent what's going on in our top 100 companies in the country. It's supposed to represent the value of those companies. So in that 20-year period, we've had a reduction of whatever that is, 10 to 15% over that in the value of our top 100 companies. But in the meantime, we've been told that our economy has been growing by 1 to 2% per year. And also in the meantime, our money supply has been expanded by 400%. So if our economy has been growing by 1 to 2% per year over 20 years, let's say it's 2%, that's a 40% growth in our economy over 20 years. But our money supply has increased by 400%, and we measure our economy in terms of the amount of money that is generated by the economy. Is that not fraud? That seems like fraud to me. Because that doesn't seem like a growing economy at all. That seems like a massive contraction. Right? It's interesting because all the stuff that Brian's been talking about. Brian has been in the UK for 5 years or something. Other people have been doing stuff for longer than that. If you look at United Nations policy, you look at European policy, you look at the funding that has gone into implementing these policies. And if you look at European, particularly, you've got objective fund money and various other forms of money that go into these various projects to move along this agenda that Brian's been talking about tonight. And it's quite interesting. They publish a brochure, and it says this objective one money, or whatever objective it is going to be spent between year X and year Y, and they've never met the deadline for year Y. Why is that? And I believe the reason is because people like us and people like you have been speaking out, and as soon as, they've got an agenda to meet, and as soon as you speak out and tell people what the reality of the agenda is, they can't meet the deadlines. Now, I'm of the view that this economic collapse that we face at the moment is absolutely intentional. But I'm also of the view that they've unleashed something that they can't control. They have no mechanism for controlling it, because it's a dynamic system that they don't particularly, this hedge fund I work for, it had PhDs from Oxford and Cambridge working, and what they were supposed to do was to research the markets, and they were purely working on a mathematical basis, research the markets and try and work out, search for inefficiencies in the markets, or something that they could exploit, something that would give them a clue what the market was going to do. And at some point early on, in the sort of mid-90s, probably had a bit of success with that, because there weren't very many people doing it. But once you've got lots and lots of people getting involved in financial markets, all playing the same game, more or less, then they have no real understanding of how that market's going to behave. And at some point, they can follow it up to a point, and then suddenly the market will do something that just does something that they didn't expect. And the problem is, all these speculators are all using the same kind of models. They're all using the same kind of graduates from Oxford and Cambridge, all trained in the same kind of degree, all using the same kind of logic. And so they build themselves into a position where whenever the trigger happens, whenever something reverses, they're all at a point where they all need to start running for the door at the same time. And when that happens, that's when the shit hits the fan, frankly. And I've seen grown men cry at that point, where they couldn't get out of a position fast enough, when they were just hemorrhaging money. And this is now the state that we're in. Now the question is, what do we do about it? Every time we talk about this stuff to somebody, if we prevent them moving along on their agenda, then they tend to lose more and more control of what's going on in the financial markets. Now the problem is that for them to do the stuff that they need to do, they need money. And if they're losing money, then they can't. That's another spanner in the works. So every time we speak out and they miss a deadline because of something we've said, then the potential is that this monster that they've unleashed, this financial crash that they can't control, is going to also compound the problem by reducing the amount of cash that they have to spend on whatever it is they want to spend it on. Right? So I realise that for many people, this next year or two is going to be very, very difficult, because people are going to start losing their jobs. People are going to start losing their pensions. And unfortunately, I'm of the view that this needs to happen, because you were talking about having trouble convincing people. This needs to happen. People are too fat and comfortable, as Brian said earlier. People need to start feeling the pain themselves. Because only when they start feeling it themselves are they going to start asking the questions. How has this happened? How the hell do we get out of it? And I believe that the only way we are going to get out of it is to produce a way out of it.
Yeah.
And that means that we've got to look at what's going on at the moment, this financial crash, as an opportunity, not as a disaster for us. And I think that the politicians, the establishment, if you like, are very concerned that the longer that it takes them to move along, obviously the the more people waking up, the more difficult it is for them. They're not going to. They're going to have a real problem persuading us to follow their agenda. It's very, Brian was saying earlier that the mood in the country has changed, and it was just something I wanted to say about that. In February, I'm sure everybody knows about, everybody's heard of Robert Greene. Yes? You know who Robert Greene is. In February, Robert Greene went to Aberdeen because he wanted to stand for Parliament on Holly Gerrish here in Aberdeen. And he was due to go up on Friday. He went up on a Friday, and he was due to meet people on Saturday morning, and he was going to start handing out leaflets to people in Aberdeen Centre. And he stayed in the guest house on Friday night. It must have been Thursday night because we were in the office. So on Friday morning he went in to meet the people. He didn't turn up. We got a phone call from somebody who was supposed to meet him and said, look, Robert hasn't turned up. I'm very concerned about where he is. He might have been arrested. So we tried phoning Granby Police and they refused to confirm or deny that Robert was in their custody. About 2-3 hours later, we got a phone call again from the same guy who was meeting him there, who said that he had confirmation that Robert had been arrested. Now, I sent an email to, I don't know, about 50, 60 people maybe, and it said, Robert's been arrested, and here's the telephone number of Granby Police if you think that you might want to phone up and ask about his welfare. And within 48 hours, Granby Police had had several thousand telephone calls. They were not happy. It shut down the call centre, and I didn't do that. Holland didn't do that. This is something that I think if Robert had been arrested in September the previous year, that wouldn't have happened. Right? 3 months after that, Maureen Spallock was arrested. And another email went out again to a very small number of people. Because I don't send out bulk emails to thousands of people, but to a very small number of people. The same thing happened. Cheshire Police got several thousand phone calls within a matter of 48 hours. And then Brian and I were in court in Portsmouth with somebody 2 months ago or so. And there was another child case. And on the way out of the court, she was arrested, allegedly for abducting her child. She had taken her child out of the country. Can't say any more than that, do they?
They put us in prison and tell you the truth.
But anyway, she was arrested for, on a child abduction charge and taken to the police station. And I said to one of the other people who was with us, look, just give Margaret Carroll in Bournemouth a call, let her know that this has happened. She can send out an email. Margaret sent out an email, and again, the same thing happened, totally spontaneously. Thousands of phone calls within a very short period of time, shutting down. We have good evidence to suggest that they had intended to section that woman, and they weren't able to do it because of the publicity. You may interject.
I'm in 13. Robert Greene was walking on the streets in Cheshire, and a lady police officer came up to him and thought, there was trouble started here because he's still bail conditions. And trying to help this Down syndrome girl, he's still having to report to the police station, well, 3 times a week, it's now twice a week. But lady police officer comes up to him and he thinks something nasty is going to happen, and she said, are you Robert Greene? And he said, yes. And she said, well, I just want to say to you that not all the police agree with what's going on, and we're actually watching what you're doing, and you stick to what you're doing. That is just magic. She's not on her own. She's talking to her mates back at the police station. Now you've got police saying we're not happy with what we're doing. And that's going around the locker room, and that's going to the desk sergeant. the desk sergeants reporting to the next big, we're having trouble because some of our people don't like what's being done. Yeah? And then what does the guy up there say? Well, I'm not doing it, it's those bastards over there who are doing it. And the thing we know about cracking the organisation, is the bad guys, is that when the pressure comes on, it's survival, isn't it, of the individual. You put them under pressure, they turn to looking after themselves. You get a fragmentation. So scaring these people. And we know that well, you imagine what it's like. Your normal night, you're going for your shift in the police station, and all of a sudden people in the call centre are saying, oh, what's going on? We've got so many calls coming in. What about? Well, it's about that lady who got in cell 4. What do you mean you got a lot of calls? How many calls? Well, hundreds. And then later on it was thousands. Then eventually they shut the call centre down. It must have been like being in Hitler's bunker. Now you look at the ones who are on purpose trained. And when that happens, they really think, us mad people are out to get them. They get very scared.
Do you not think, though, that as the momentum goes and people start waking up, that they'll just scare the mothers out of us with another fake terrorist attack?
Well,
shut supermarkets?
Laughing at it does make a huge difference. I mean, if you talk global warming now, most people are saying, what a joke. And they can't cope with that because they thought at this stage everybody was going to be running around. You know, I'm going to light a fire. Well, I had a barbecue at the weekend and I was concerned because the temperature in my village went up. I couldn't measure it, but it definitely went up. People are laughing and taking the mickey out and they can't do it. It's like the bird flu thing. It didn't fly, did it? It didn't go. So basically, we're just now seeing people doing things that they didn't used to do. The love police, well, that's quite interesting.
But if they bring about an economic collapse,
do you think if they pulled another 9/11 right now, do you think?
I don't think people are subscribed to that, but they're not stupid enough to strike in the same place as well. If you shut down the food supply, your local guy on the street, if the supermarkets are all empty after a few days,
You've already got it
still going to be
in. You got it in?
Yeah,
you got your
I've got
supplies
it.
in?
Well, I'll tell you something. You know,
That's why they think we're nuts in Portsmouth.
as you
That's because you've got 2.5 tons of baked beans.
Chickpeas, more protein.
Actually, you can tell where I'm from, right? So,
Yeah.
right. When was it? In the late 80s, early 90s, or something like that. You remember the Drum Creek marches? They were trying to march. The Orange Order was trying to march Drum Creek. There was one year they effectively had a national strike over that. And 2.5 days, 3 days, supermarkets were empty. There was nothing. So that, I think I probably go into the supermarket these days. Maybe I do shopping on Sunday. There's almost nothing on the shelves.
I agree with you, but the difference is that people brought about the strike. If the people in power or the people that are trying to coerce us to wherever they're trying to get us to stop the food supply, it's a different kettle of fish.
You imagine if we were able now to encourage a lot of people to bring in food supplies.
They think you're nuts.
Yeah, but just think of the impact on the bad guys. They've got a real problem. This is why they want to get everything off us. You know, I don't think my wife Jill.
Oh, you're preaching to the converted. I agree
I
with
said
you
to her, I
completely.
think we need to get some food stocks in, and I could see her looking at me. And she wanted, you know, but eventually I went round to Tesco. What I discovered was quite interesting. You tried looking at the quantity of long life food in Tesco.
Yeah.
The tin section is minuscule. It goes for corned beef because it's got a minimum of 5 years of stock shelf. So we have that with baked beans. Yeah, but if we got people now, not panic buying, but to be out there buying foodstuffs in so they were comfortable for a month, what a difference that made. Then they've got a problem. People are beginning to stockpile food. Are we going to start our programme to shut food down now? Well, we can't because we haven't got cups in the world. So you're messing it up all the time. You know, so.
But we're not the majority. Obviously, our
but
town
these-
may be a
these
bad
people,
example.
how many people plan what's going on? It's not 5,000, it's 50, I guarantee, white, middle-aged, fat men. 50% who are paedophiles, that's my impression of these people. They are the people who sit and plan and scheme. And I've got to give credit to the Irish boys, the sovereign independent guys. Do you know the story about this, that they went into a restaurant in Ireland and there was Rockefeller sat at the table? So they went up to him and said, Mr. Rockefeller, you're not going to succeed in your new world order. Right? And they then decided to vacate before and they left in the newspaper, right? We like this because where did the sovereign independent come from? It came from them getting excited by what we were doing. And he said, how do I create a paper? And I said, go and buy a decent word processor, proper editing program. And they did it. And then somebody in a music scene over there helped them with the money. And their first print was 340,000 newspapers. And that just came off the back of us saying to some Irish guys who we didn't know, give it a go. What then happens is, they happen to go into a restaurant and there's Rockefeller. Now, what did Rockefeller do? It must have really spooked him that these people challenged him and said, no, you're not going to do it. What does he go away and think? I'm going to eradicate. He might think I'd like to eradicate more, but he can't. We're still here.
Yeah, what you're saying is correct, but it's not Rockefeller or anyone else that's going to come trying to cross the vans or anything like that. You're still trying to wake up the people in between.
Yeah, I know.
You're saying they're
we're not
waking.
going to not do it because we're worried we might fail. We're going to do it because if we fail, we're going to be lost. Yeah. I'm afraid my ultimate logic is I'm going to take a few of them with me. It's going to be peaceful, but there are limits. I'm not going to say any more than that. But you can't play this game thinking that they're going to walk all over you. And if you get in a room with some of these
I'm not playing. It's the only thing I've got in the world to the van.
Is it what?
The van's the only thing I've got. I'm not playing at all. I just need to know it's real. So they take it, they crush it, claims the rights don't work, we are slaves and all the rest of it, or it does work.
You are doing your protest in your own way.
Yeah.
And what we are saying is, because we can see a bit of a bigger picture, because we're talking to people all over the UK and Ireland and now Europe and elsewhere, and it's going, it's happening. A lady barrister from Australia calls up on Skype and says, we're really interested in what's going on because we've seen, what she was actually talking about was people suddenly committing suicide. She said, I knew there was something weird going on. So now you're talking to people in Australia, but then you get the call from Israel. Yeah, and this is how John Harris will tell you the same story. Ike's worldwide now, so he goes and does it all. So, we can get pretty gloomy, but, if you translate it back, if you go back to the Second World War, people didn't back out. I know the war was created, but just talking on human instinct, people didn't back out because they thought they might, get wiped out. They decide what they're going to fight for.
But loads of people did back out in the Second World War, so...
Pardon?
Loads of people did back out in the Second World War.
Well, they did.
Not just as objectives, so...
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it's amazing what people power can do. A little story I usually tell. Just outside Plymouth, there's a little place called Chapstock, and it's a very close-knit community. Quite a big town, but quite a close-knit community. And they were going to build a McDonald's outside, and people didn't want it, so they protested, and they ignored them, and they built the McDonald's. So the people all got together and said, right, we won't use it. And they didn't. And 12 months later, they closed it down. People power. It's amazing what you can do.
We also say, we've been bad at it down at Plymouth, but in other places, this is a great turnout. Thank you very much, for coming. But in other places, when this number of people come together, somebody says, we could do this again, we could get some different speakers. Don't talk about this, talk about food or food additives. People come along and you'll find people will come up because they get curious. And it grows. Bournemouth has gone from 2 or 3 people having meetings which are so big they're now looking for new places. And we're getting this all the time. So,
you know, it is depressing sometimes.
There's always
Everyone
enough
wants it
police.
to go faster, but it is happening. It is happening.
Oh, it's a gloomy business. I might play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
It's nice to everyone. So.
Yeah.
I mean, for the duration, I've got no choice. I want the truth, and that's it all about it. And I don't mind trying.
I think the best on a personal level that you can do is just, one, non-compliance. Wherever possible, non-compliance. Don't pay your TV license. Don't pay taxes wherever you can get away with it. I mean, somewhere you have to. If you buy petrol, you're automatically going to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Trade freely. Use cash, barter.
Yeah.
You know, withdraw from the bank or economic system. And screw the banks. Use your credit cards and then just give them the finger.
Yeah.
There is nothing they can do to get that money back. They phone me every day and I have a laugh with them. Seriously, they are screwed. There is no lawful way for them to get that money back. You can take them for as much as you can get. Just take it, man. Because they're printing it out of thin air. You've just worked yourself to it. For sure they are.
Well, I think we're getting to a natural close. Can we say two things? One is, any donations gratefully received, because everything we do is on donations. We're dependent on anybody. I know money's tight, but fuel costs. And the other thing is, anybody who wants to write, we're interested in articles for the paper. So if you've got a pet topic, and it can be something, wherever you like, because what we've learned is that, you know, people read an article in the paper because they're interested in, I come back to this food additives thing. So they're interested in paper because it's their topic, and then they read the other things. So if anybody's got a subject they want to write on, and we're really happy to take it, we'd love to have it.
Editor@ukcolumn.org.
The French lady you had up at Stoke-on-Trent going on about the food, she was really good.
Yeah. Well, there's one lady who started out at one person, and now she's talking to audiences of 1,000 people.
Yeah, she was a good speaker.
Brilliant, yeah. And we're still trying to get her going, because that's a story.
So for her to see the plug in white,
Okay, where's Wayne gone? Can we thank you for setting this up?
And Jake as well.
And it's been really great to see you. If anybody wants to chat, I don't know if you're going to throw now, if you want to chat for a bit, we're around.